Welcome to Core Finance. Let's talk to Mr. Marc Ostwald. He's a strategist at ADMiSI. Mark, my favourite subject, the market sell-off. Okay, what's going on out there? Is this the beginning of a new down leg?
Well, it's in a certain sense, it's hardly surprising that people have got excited. But let's remember,
well, the bears have got excited.
Well, the bears have got excited, and the bears have not had much joy, particularly over the last 2-3 years. Yeah, but we have seen this sell-off. I would imagine that some of the moves are actually exacerbated by the fact that we've got really, really thin summer trading conditions. However, it is the case that it's always been it's very much a one-way trade the whole time. Everyone's been a buyer of equities on dips, they've been a buyer of credit on dips, and every jump up that we've seen in volatility has been crushed mercilessly. So I think getting overexcited by a 1% move and thinking that the bears are back in control is probably a little bit overdone. Nevertheless, a lot of this is about weight of positioning. So one of the charts I've brought with me today is what's pretty much been a very good leading indicator, ironically, that the high yield bond ETF, which is the green line on that chart, is often a good leading indicator for what's going to happen next in US equities. And as one can see, it's been selling off since the beginning of the month.
So that's a leader, not a laggard, is it?
Yes, that's the leader of the S&P.
Yeah.
But if you put it in the context of that's only a year, and the move down that we've seen is modest at the very best. But an interesting aspect of this is we've got this issue for Tesla in the bond market.
This is the raising of...
Yeah, they're raising money for the production of
Tesla 3.
For the Tesla 3. Now, it's a very, very covenant-like bond. So you've got very little protection as an investor. When one thinks, it's an 8-year non-call 3, so it's basically a 3-year bond. But 5.25% is probably not actually rewarding you given Tesla's cash burn rather. Yeah. So you have to be a little bit concerned that maybe this Tesla bond, like we've seen in many instances in the past, back in 2007, there was a 100-year issue for Telecom Italia, which basically sounded the death knell for the high end or the high yield end of the market.
So this is almost potential to be the bell ringing.
It's a bit of a bell ringer, yeah, exactly. One does have to wonder whether there's huge enthusiasm for it. I should say the book is about 2 times the issue size, which is $1.5 billion. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And as we've seen, actually, with a lot of the IPOs this year, when one looks, say, for instance, at Snap, Blue Apron, all crashing off, perhaps this relentless buying of risk assets needs to be checked a little, and I think that's the right terminology, because at the end of the day, yields in traditional markets are still very low. So there will be buyers, but maybe we need a bigger dip this time. The other aspect to this, and again, it's to do with this relentless shorting of volatility, is in the next chart, which is the VIX index future net position. And it just builds and builds and builds. Eventually you get to that point where everyone's so short of volatility that they trip up over themselves. Yep. And this has been a trend all year long. Basically, we've had things like the Canadian dollar, big net short earlier in the year. Bank of Canada suddenly does a big volte-face on where it's going with rates, and suddenly there's a massive short covering rally. So it's things which trip the market up. Now, the important part here, and this is where the danger for the market lies, is we know that leverage is very high at the moment. And a lot of people are, particularly the sort of very speculative hedge fund type people, are actually very, very short of this. And if they're short in a very leveraged way, this move is actually going to hurt the move that we saw from 10 to 16 in short order. 16 in the longer run for the VIX is neither here nor there. Yeah. It's about average, but it's the speed of the move which could trip a few people up and create a little bit of its own momentum. So it's something to watch out for.
Understood. Final thoughts, are you going to sleep well this weekend in terms of career?
Well, I think so. I hope so. It isn't exactly encouraging that we've got 2 people who are rather volatile on holding control of the buttons. It would be nice to see General Kelly, Donald Trump's chief of staff, asserting his authority over this rather uncontrolled jawboning that we're getting from Mr. Trump.
Mark, thank you very much indeed.